Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is Roger Connect, the host of the show, and this podcast is dedicated to helping you as accounting professionals start, build, and have the premier accounting firm in your area. It's in this podcast that we cover a variety of topics, things that are applicable to working on your business. They may range each and every week from marketing, selling, pricing, to client onboarding strategies, services to provide and offer, client retention, all the way through to mental health and so much more. So as a podcast, I definitely invite you to subscribe and listen to this episode and the many others that we've already had. And more importantly, stay tuned for the future episodes. Why? Because this is dedicated to helping you actually get paid what you're worth, offering quality accounting services as the premier accounting firm in your area. Now, as your host, I try to bring on the experts that have something to share, say, that will actually help us take and more or less work on our business. And today's going to be no exception to that. The guest that I have today is someone that I've been looking forward to having on the show for some time. It happens to be Patrick Dichter. And Patrick has an interesting background. But before I clarify a little bit of what he is and who he is, I want to say this. Right now, he works with small business owners to help them scale their businesses faster and work smarter on their operation. He works basically as a small business growth expert, and he considers himself a small business geek. But with that perspective, understand this. He grew up in a small town of Morrison, Colorado, and did his undergrad and MBA at the University of Denver. He now lives in New England and obviously, like all of us, does a lot of Zoom land all day. But what he did is basically this journey that's so fascinating is that working his way through school, he sold door to door, working 80 hours per week for 4 summers, doing summer sales for Southwestern Advantage. And then somehow this analytical guy doing sales got involved with a digital marketing startup, RevLocal, and he was able to help them over 7 years go from 0 to 35 million in annualized revenue. And it's in that growth that he learned a lot of the business acumen that he needs to actually help with his clients. But what's fascinating is recently, after doing all of this, he had the itch to run his own company, and seeing how impactful quality bookkeeping is, he bought an accounting firm, Appletree Business Services, and that's where he brings us to today. Now, he and his wife have basically 3 amazing young children, and he is excited when he can get out and go fly fishing. So there's a lot that we're going to be talking about today, but Patrick, welcome to the show.
Roger, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I've got to just kind of jump into this. Obviously, I talk so often with people that have accounting backgrounds that get that itch to start and build an accounting business, whether to supplement an income, start a business full-time. They each have their story, but yours is so exciting. Like so many entrepreneurs, you're looking for the opportunity and you chose to purchase an accounting firm. Why an accounting firm? Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, I have so many regrets. I don't know if you want to buy it, but that's why. No, I'm kidding. It's been a winding road, but I think it makes sense looking back. I really love working with small businesses and helping them grow. So I did that in a marketing function for 7 years. And then I spent 3 years doing small business consulting. And most of these clients that we were supposed to be consulting with, they came in and they had terrible bookkeeping. And we were always referring that out. And I saw how transformative that was. And so, that led me down the path of looking for an accounting firm to purchase. And the more I explored it, the more excited I got, and now here I am, I'm 8 months in post-close, and I really enjoy it. I love working with small businesses. I think, having good, clean bookkeeping and good data there can tell you so much about how to grow a business. And we also take care of their tax work. So I think we have a unique approach for these small business owners who are normally underserved in the market.
Well, there's a lot of what you just shared that I'd like to tap into. First of all, so often we work with clients, business owners that start their own business and don't necessarily do what they're buying. You likewise, you don't have an accounting background in the way of your education and so forth, but yet you bought this business. The thing I want to point out is I've regularly had conversations with people that don't have a formal background in accounting that do so well offering accounting services because of the perspective they bring to the client discussion, them not being necessarily accountants, but yet offering accounting services, they're able to go so deep in a way that the business owner benefits because they have that same perspective and understanding that the business owner client has. So this is going to be a great conversation. So what do you think makes you unique because of your background as to the services that you're providing to your clients? How do you feel yours are different than a traditional accountant might do or offer?
Well, I can't take credit for our differentiated services because they already were this way before I bought them. But I always say this to our prospective clients. Most small businesses make the mistake of trying to do their own bookkeeping, or they'll have, one solo bookkeeper do it, and it's not done well. And then that mess gets thrown over to a tax professional, and it's all very reactive, and you're having to chase multiple people, and there's no holistic view going on. So our model at Appletree is, it's bundled bookkeeping and tax, and there's no option to break it up. And what that allows us to do is, give them good, clean financials every single month. We have a bookkeeper who does that. It gets peer reviewed by the accounting manager. And then that accounting manager really looks at the tax perspective throughout the whole year and can do more proactive planning, around quarterly estimates, year-end estimates, and having a good feel and pulse for the business throughout the year. So I think that's what makes us different is that we bundle those. It's one team that does it. And we have a consistent process for how we, manage our clients' accounting so that they get a good, consistent product out of it.
Perfect. The idea that you have this bookkeeper, you've got the accounting manager, you've got the tax services bundled. It's something that you say you don't separate. I really like that because each business has the choice as to what accounting services they're going to provide. You could do bookkeeping, you can do bookkeeping and accounting, you can do tax planning, tax preparation, CFO, advisory. We have the choice based on what we would like to do to offer each of those. But what's fascinating is you're a great example of basically managing, overseeing, running a business that has competent individuals that can fulfill a service that needs to be done that perhaps you don't have that skill doing. So many bookkeepers hire an excellent tax preparer. Many accountants hire great CFOs. I mean, it's just a breath of fresh air to hear what you're describing there.
Yeah, I want to add to that a little bit because that's what
go
it's
ahead.
been up to this point. And I think we can continue to provide even more value to our clients with two additional sort of phases of the engagement, right? So I see it as, step one is know your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Step two, grow your company. Step three is, live a legacy, right? So step one, know your numbers. That's our bookkeeping and tax services. Step two, grow your company. That's where we're going to offer additional consulting that's really helping them, improve profitability, hire salespeople, build out their team, really some of that, what people are calling advisory or fractional, VP of sales or fractional CFO services. And then the third bucket, we either help them get ready to sell or we help them hire a GM so they can get out of the day-to-day. And that's like the live a legacy, right? So you're either going to sell it and live a legacy or you're going to get your time back and get out of the business. So, for the next, 6 to 12 months, we're really focused on building out that first, part of the engagement. And then we've started, there's 3 of us now that do the consulting work, where some of those clients are receiving additional services to help them look forward and grow.
I really love what you're talking here because it's going beyond the accounting. What you've done is by bringing in that advisory and that coaching service is you've really basically solidified that client's relationship with you. You're doing the accounting, the bookkeeping, you're offering the tax services, but now through curiosity questions, you're able to get into that business and really help them, as you were just describing, build a business that will ultimately become their legacy and identifying the exit strategy. How are we going to kind of move beyond this? Those things I think are critical and very appropriate for the accounting professional to incorporate into their offering. Was this something that was being done at the time by Appletree when you purchased them, or is it something you've brought because of your background and experience to the firm?
Right. Something I brought. It was not done before.
I love it. I love it. So that being brought by you, you've had the business for 8 months. have you been able to see an increase in revenue, new revenue from this added service that didn't exist before?
Yeah, definitely. I think, prior to purchase, it was about a $1.2 million firm, so give or take, 120,000 revenue per
Uh-huh.
month. Um, so, yeah, we've probably added 30 to 40K a month in billable consulting work.
I love it. See, one of the things that I think each firm needs to consider, and every time I'm consulting with the firm, I have this kind of a conversation, which is what is the core service that you're providing right now, and what is it that you're offering that pays the bills that the revenue comes in from, and then from that, what can you then in time offer to complement what you're doing? And it's oftentimes the bookkeeper starting to do accounting work, or the bookkeeper starting to do tax prep work. And eventually it leads to CFO and advisory services. And my personal preference is there because I think that's the most exciting part of the business. You get to go so much deeper with the client and have some very profound conversations that really impact them and where they're taking their business. What is it that you like about the advisory space?
I love the puzzle piece and the problem solving with them,
Mm-hmm.
and just knowing that you're going to have a major impact on the business. Quick story: we have a construction client we're talking to recently. He does remodeling and kitchen and baths and decks and things like that. And he has this idea where he really wants to build golf shacks, right? So these $30,000 to $40,000, kind of golf. He calls them shacks, but they're high end, like golf simulators within a house, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we definitely think that there's a market for that, and he already has some demand, but he needs to get his existing construction business, more profitable and a little bit more turnkey without him
Yeah.
before he goes and builds this new division, right? So like that is such a fun exercise of like going through his current business, looking at his pricing model, looking at his cash flow, his sales and marketing engine, and saying, how can we improve those things so that you can have the time and the money to go, build out this other division. And some of the conversations with him we're having, I know will you know double the profitability of his firm, or just be able to give him so much time back, because of a few levers that we can pull in the business, and just what we've seen from so many other small businesses that run into similar problems.
What you just described there is something I've experienced time and again. And it's really, I think, quite important because you've taken a client that has an idea, a good idea, something that they want to do, a great complement to geometrically grow their business. But like you were describing, the day-to-day business is continually sucking them back into the operations of the company and not giving them the latitude they have to grow the business in this new exciting area. But yet with your advisory service, you're able to ask the right questions, maybe get them to consider ways to delegate, maybe hire and employ other people, set up processes and systems that free them from the day-to-day operations to pursue this additional interest, and in time have a whole new revenue stream that's complementing the current business model. I mean, is that a pretty good summation of what you're describing?
Yeah, you nailed it. And
Perfect.
all those pieces are intertwined, right? So you have to look at the whole picture. And I think the other thing that's just the reality of it is, um, the business owners are busy, right? So being able to lead them in a way, and just help them solve one thing at a time, and as things go sideways, you're there to see what went well and what went wrong, so that they they see legitimate change, instead of just you know they go to a conference, they get excited, they go home, and then nothing changes, right? So
Mhm.
we're there to come alongside them, and help them through that change management.
Perfect. Perfect. So I want to go back to the fact that you purchased Appletree, and kind of get some perspective there, because I know a lot of my listeners, as part of their growth model, they do want to acquire firms, and through that, they're obviously purchasing other bookkeeping tax type businesses. In that process, they're evaluating, coming up with, whether or not there's a business of worth to absorb and take on, to purchase. What was your process like of finding and determining this was a good fit, and basically valuing it to where you were able to make that purchase? What was that process like for you?
It was a long, messy journey. Um, so I was really looking. My initial criteria, I was looking for bookkeeping only, and I wanted something over 500K in revenue, and at least 100 to 200,000 in, cash flow to the owner, right? So seller discretionary earnings is the term that a lot
Yeah.
of people use. So as I went out to look, there's not many of those on the market. There's a lot of old school traditional tax firms on the market, and I didn't want that. And there's some sites out there, and there's also some brokerage sites. And I ran into some obstacles where the brokers just wouldn't put me in front of their clients because I'm not a CPA, right?
Yeah.
And as much as I tried to convey, look, I have an MBA, I know professional service firms, I can replace owner's billable time. I work inside my clients' QuickBooks all the time. I've taken accounting and finance classes. I can grow a company once I acquire it. They would not put me in front of their clients. They said, go get your CPA or partner with the CPA and come back.
Interesting.
So because of that, I had to do my own outreach. So I kind of took the bull by the horns, and I, created a big list and created my own email marketing campaign, and, ended up drumming up my own conversations. And that led me to a couple firms that were bookkeeping and tax. And ultimately, what I loved about Appletree was that strong, kind of subscription productized service that got me comfortable with, taking on the tax work as well. And the fact that, Appletree only serves small business and doesn't do a lot of the individual returns that tend to bog down most traditional firms.
Perfect. Now, I don't know if you have an answer to this, but there are some bookkeeping franchises that exist. Did you ever consider that route, or were you solely wanting to go for an independent business?
No, I wanted something that was already up and running.
Good.
And I think there's some franchise brands that are solid, but I wouldn't buy a bookkeeping franchise just because there's not much of a geographic moat,
Okay. All right. And then the next question is, and I experience this quite often, but you're now owning the business and overseeing in an accounting, a bookkeeping tax business, people that have an accounting background that perhaps could be CPAs, let's say, or enrolled agents. How is it managing as the owner individuals in an accounting business where they may have, and perhaps obviously do have, more accounting background or experience? Is there any dynamic there that you'd be interested in sharing?
Yeah, I will say it's gone much smoother than I thought. You always hear these horror stories of just nightmare transitions and super stressful stories of the first year. We've had our challenges. I've had my stress, but it hasn't been like that. I think that's due to a couple of things. Previous owner Steve is awesome, and he did a fantastic job of really training the team and creating the system. So he was only really managing 2 clients himself, which is, I think abnormal.
Huge.
I
Yeah,
think
that's great.
We were a part, or are a part of PASBA, which is an association of, accountants who serve small business. And there was a lot of best practices followed there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other thing was we were slow and intentional with the transition. So, we said, I'm not going to change things. I'm here to listen. I'm not trying to, break something that's already working. So I really, came in slow and just tried to get feedback and hear what makes Appletree work well, and then try to, get buy-in before I would change anything, and, slowly make adjustments or improvements over time.
Perfect. I love this. This is excellent. So, one, just for the listeners, I know that there's a lot that actually do purchase firms to complement their own business that are extensions of services that they may not already offer. So it's like a tax business that's hiring or purchasing intentionally a bookkeeping business. The intent is
Right.
to now offer their tax services to the bookkeeping clients that they acquired, and vice versa. But the point is now they're basically taking on a whole skill set of something they don't offer, but yet they're the owner and manager of it. So you described what your experience has been very well, and I appreciate it. So the next thing is, you've got Steve, as you mentioned, selling the business. Share with us, just for yourself, how that transition was as Steve exits the day-to-day operations of the business and leaves. When the sale occurred 8 months ago, did he just leave? Was he on a consulting basis? Did you have a 6-month agreement that he stay on term? What was that transition like?
Yeah, he's still around now, but I'll explain how we got here. So we closed at the very end of the year. We closed on December 31st. And the agreement was that he would stay on until May 1st, through the tax season and with the transition, and then we'd see from there. We get along pretty well. He's still healthy and enjoys the work a lot and has a ton of value to add. So now he's staying on, until May, and we're basically taking it year to year. So that's kind of how it's worked out, and it seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, it's great that he's able to stay on and that you've got that working relationship. Most of the time, I'm working with owners that sell their business, and what the narrative is that they've just mentally given up. They've just transitioned mentally, and they're ready to exit, leave, move on to some other thing. And so it's actually kind of rare that I see someone that's staying on. So I appreciate that. In some instances, it becomes more of a partnership, but obviously you acquired it. But anyways, the next question is the firm itself. You're running the business. You're bringing in these advisory services. How did you value the business? How did you come to a dollar amount in your mind that you felt was worth the offer?
Yeah, I think the market rate is between 0.9 to 1.5 times annual revenue, right? So just for an easy example, if it's $1 million firm, most of the time they trade around 1 times, right? So it's $1 million purchase price.
Yeah.
Goes higher than that, up towards 1.5 if they're more cloud-based, modern, very profitable. So ultimately we landed around 1.1, and I think I went for a little bit of a premium there, given that it was a well-run firm. He had some key employees in place, and honestly, I didn't back out any like PPP revenue. I just tried to say like, here it is. So I'd say I even paid more than that. I know some people, when they purchased, they would back out any like short-term projects like that.
Yeah.
Right. If you're going after PPP or ERC type, one-time work, they might not include that in the valuation. But
yeah,
ultimately, we landed on 1.1 because I just wanted to, close a deal and get going and not, fight over price and lose a deal.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that explanation. Lots of times people wonder how that looks, and I appreciate the simplicity in which you gave it. Just basically the 0.9 to the 1.5 of revenue, annualized revenue. That's a simple way of looking at it. But that leads me to the next question, and you alluded to this. What was the value that you felt you were purchasing in the business? Was it the key employees that you were mentioning? Is it the standard operating procedures that they had? Was it the client list? When you looked at the business, what did you feel was the $1.1 million purchase?
Yeah. So, and again, we were trending about 1.2 million in revenue. So the 1.1 value made it more to like 1.3. But what made me see that it was worth more, a few things. The subscription type billing, right? So there was good smooth revenue throughout the year. The fact that he had managers in place that lead the client relationship and do the tax work made me feel like it would transition well. There was a good 25 to 28% fall into the bottom line on the net profit side. Being a firm in that PASBA association, I didn't know about it. And actually the SBA lender that works with a lot of accounting firms over at Live Oak, he said, the PASBA firms are typically, just more quality firms or, better in transition. So that made me feel comfortable paying a premium.
So you've brought up PASBA. Why don't we just talk real briefly about that? Tell the listeners what PASBA is and what it is you've gained from that association.
Yes. So there's probably 300 firms in there, and they're accounting firms that really focus on serving small business. So it's an association that has, a couple conferences per year, and then there's, webinars and an online forum. But They really practice and promote trying to share knowledge with one another so that owners can build a bigger practice and get themselves out of the day to day. So, a lot of the best practices in there are, subscription style pricing, getting team members on production based pay for compensation, um, having your team built out in pods. So you have a tax manager that leads the relationship and they oversee the staff accountant. And that team of two can do about $600,000 in billable revenue per year.
Yeah.
So you're basically trying to fill out these teams so that it's not, just Bob's accounting firm and everyone knows Bob. And so, that's a brief look at, PASBA, but it's really, it's a great association and kind of mastermind model that goes on there.
Perfect. I appreciate that. I know that everyone's always looking for community and so forth, and I think it's important that they realize that as a profession, these do exist. So that's awesome. About Appletree, you basically said that as you've taken over the business, you didn't want to really change anything. You wanted people to see that you were coming in respecting what was already going on, and the business model was working. But you then brought in the advisory services. You've now begun generating an additional top-line revenue with that inclusion of a new service. But what's your vision of the future? 1 year, 3 year, 5 years down the road, where do you want to take this? Where do you see the business going in the accounting space?
We'll be a $5 million firm in 5 years, period. Not if, we will. So what that will look like is impacting, about 250 to 300 small businesses.
Uh-huh.
We'll have team members who, really enjoy their work and have good work-life balance. And I want to continue to go deeper in a couple of verticals to provide more value to those clients. So I really want to get down in, home services. So those would be, flooring, landscaping, cabinetry type businesses.
Okay.
The other bucket is professional services, right? So consulting, marketing, legal, folks like that. And the future that I see is the accountant is not just, doing the P&L, or they're not just cranking out a tax return. I envision where, it's really hub and spoke, right? So I want us to know if a plumber comes to me and he says, do you know ServiceTitan CRM? We'll say, yes, we know how that integrates with QBO. We know what your problems are. We know, how you should, amortize, your trucks and your vehicles, right? I really want to go deep within those industries so that we can really, do the accounting services better. We can forecast better. We can create benchmarks within their field, and just give them confidence that we're adding that much more value. And we know all the other tools that touch their accounting stack, besides just being generalists that can crank out a P&L.
There's three things I loved about the vision that you just shared. One, the dollar amount, the 5 million. I think it's very important to have that clarity as to what it is you're striving and growing towards, and the milestones along the way to achieve it. The second thing is you clearly knew the number of clients that it was going to take to actually get there. That number is hugely important because you've got to be able to say 3 months, 12 months, 24 months along the path, have we been acquiring the clients that we need? Are we on pace to get those clients that we ultimately need? And the third thing that I think was, and by the way, before I leave the second thing, the number of clients is indicative of what your average revenue per client is. You've got to have that established so that you can determine, okay, well, how many clients do I need, knowing what the average revenue is per client. But the third thing that I think is hugely important is you were also clear on the services that you were offering to then get that average revenue per client. And that relationship you were describing, it's more than just the bookkeeping. It's more than just the tax. You were obviously showing that advisory is clearly a key component of what you're offering. And the business model that you're leveraging, you've already got it. And you're basically now describing the business that you're clearly aware you need to have to achieve the goal that you've got. So love the vision, love the goal, and I love the clarity that you brought with it. What advice would you have for owners of accounting firms as to what they should be doing to be, as I call it, the premier accounting firm in their area? What advice do you have to a peer?
I feel like I cheated in a way because, I bought something that Steve had built up over 20 years, right? So I gotta skip, a lot of the sweat and toil there. But
Mm-hmm.
um, my advice would be to productize, to, delegate, to hire ahead. Um, I think there's so much demand in this space and there's less people coming into the field. If you want to grow a big business, it's not as much of a sales challenge. There is some challenge there, but it's really more of a, can you keep your systems tight and can you keep good people, right? And if you do that, I mean, not to pick on accountants, but like most owners aren't the best at like delegating and like getting back to clients. They're in the habit of taking on too much and trying to touch every client. So
Yeah.
that would be my advice: is really like start with the end in mind, and um, you know get get those products and systems down, and then like try to rinse and repeat, and you know and delegate and hire ahead.
Perfect. That is great. So this discussion right now has been built around a lot of the accounting. Let me switch it real quickly to just a few personal things, just to kind of have a little bit more fun with this. I know that you and your wife Bree are living in New England. What took you to New England?
Yeah, my wife's from New England, so she
Okay.
missed the ocean, and we were having a third kid, and grandma, her mom, was able to help out a little bit more. So yeah, we moved, and it's been good. I still go back to Colorado a couple times a year, and that's why we're here.
I love it. Okay, good. And then your children, although young, what do you hope they witness, observe, take from watching you go out and purchase this business, run a business? What do you hope that they're gaining from this observation?
We you know we, we took our oldest to kindergarten this week.
Yeah, yeah.
And when people like fill out the little sign and the kid holds it up, it's like, how old are you? What do you want to be? Well, for what do you want to be, he wrote cowboy engineer. So I don't know what a cowboy engineer is, but I love it. So I don't think he wants to be an accountant just yet. But
Uh-huh.
um, at the end of the day, we have three boys. They're still young. I don't know. I have a very jaded view on education now. My wife and I both worked really hard. She's a veterinarian, so she worked her tail off to get into vet school and studied like crazy. And she wouldn't go down the same career path again if she could do it again, right? I worked my tail off in school as well, and graduated top of my class, and like worked really hard to get a bunch of scholarships and go to business school. And I'm just jaded on like this singular path for education. So for our own kids, I would much rather have a B or C student that is creative and happy and entrepreneurial than I would like some straight A kid that we try to just nail to like a certain career path. I just think
Yeah.
the world changes so fast these days. So I don't know if that's what you're asking, but honestly, I just hope that our kids pursue what they enjoy and can think on their feet. And if down the road they have any interest in owning an accounting firm, we'll see if that feels like a fit for them. If not, this will be a great vehicle to take care of the family and be able to spend lots of time with them.
Yeah. Well, I'm always intrigued by the answers that I get when I ask about children, because as parents, we know that they're keen observers of what it is we're doing. And so it's just interesting having an entrepreneur spirit, going out there, running a business, putting in, even still, once the company is established, you still have pretty aggressive growth plans. And as the children watch you put in that time, energy, and effort, they're going to glean from it some traits. And it's always interesting to me what traits we're hoping they're gleaning from our experience. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to now default to Bree, your wife. What is it that you feel she has made possible for you with the support and let's say encouragement that she's given? How has that helped you as you've gone down this path?
Yeah, blind trust, I guess. No, she she's brilliant. She has a medical mind, but she doesn't think about like business or money much. So when I was about to close on the deal, and sign an SBA loan, I said, okay, if this goes sideways, like, we have no money, right? Like, I just want you to like understand this and like look at these numbers for a second, because I'm signing away every penny we have with this personal guarantee to the SBA. And she was like, okay, I trust you, So she is really supportive, and she's always told me, she always saw me running my own business, and I think she also understood that these first, 6 to 9 months would be really time intensive. So she's been great to, allow me the room to, work early in the morning or late at night if I need to, and, go to conferences, and just knows that this is kind of a harvest season that we're in. So, yeah, she's been a huge support.
I appreciate you basically sharing that, simply because of the fact that I know so many of the people that I work with, behind them, along with them, is someone that's definitely supporting them. And it can be from spouses to friends, family. There's typically someone that's in their corner that's cheering them along, supporting them. And I love that story. I love the fact that we can each identify someone, like, as you just described, Bree, supporting you. So that's awesome. Next question. With regards to accounting, you come at it from a different point of view, not being from a traditional accounting education background. What is it that you feel as accounting professionals we miss that is hugely important to clients from your perspective?
That's a great question. I think the nitty gritty of how it gets done is not important to the client. I think what gets missed is the insights, right? So literally this week, I sent out a accounting proposal to a company that makes clothes and sells them into restaurants and bars.
Okay.
And they've grown from 1 to 3 million. And he's frustrated with his bookkeeper. And I sent him a quote for our bookkeeping and tax, and it's 3 or 4 times what he's been paying, right? And he he's like, okay, where does this number come from? Like, how many hours are you working on this? Yada yada. And I kind of gave him a reply, but I said, look, at the end of the day, you've grown in a $3 million company with multiple divisions. You have multiple product lines. Having good, clean bookkeeping is going to allow you to know what your marketing attribution is, know what your profitability is between these divisions, know if you can hire more people, forecast accurately, as you open another warehouse, or you take on debt, or you decide to expand. And, frankly, you're going to have a lot more profit than you had before. So I think what a lot of accountants miss is those bigger picture items that the owner cares about. They come from the bookkeeping, right? Like, they don't need to know how we're going to do a bank rec, or, what a chart of accounts is, but they would care a lot if you can say, I'll be able to tell you if your, profit margin declined over the last 6 months because your labor has gone out of hand, right? Like, it's the insights that you can glean from it that I think accountants should pay more attention to.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think too often we miss that opportunity because of the perception we have of the numbers to point out these things that are going on in the business. A good example of today's market is the inflation. So many of the clients I'm working with happen to have inflation impacting their bottom line. But if you can't show in the cost of goods and elsewhere where these things are creeping in, it's hard for them to see when they're happening, how much it's happening, how much they need to adapt and adjust their own pricing because of it. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and they can just kind of on a whim or just on a gut change something, or they can literally take a lot of the analysis and information we can bring and make an educated, informed decision about their business and run it more profitably. So I think what you just shared is hugely important, that as accounting professionals, we need to be able to articulate, because it's not just the features, the work we're doing that matters. It's the benefit that the client receives from what it is we offer. So well said. Excellent. I think that is excellent. All right.
One thing there, you just said features versus benefits.
Yeah.
Back in the day when I was doing sales training, the best way to do that, the phrase that links features to benefits, you just say, what this means to you is, right? So if you're an accountant and you glean those numbers, all you have to do is say, what this means to you is, and then your brain will naturally go towards the benefit and help the client connect the dots.
I love that. I do an exercise with accounting firms where I say, write down all the work you're doing for your clients, because that's easy for them. They're very good at saying, this is what I'm billing for. These are my billable hours, in other words, or whatever. And they make that lengthy list of, well, if you pay for this service, this is what I'll be doing each and every month. And I say, great. But what's the benefit that the client's getting? And your statement there is that bridge. It's that easy way of saying, okay, if I did this, what does that mean to them? And to make that bridge go over to then take the time to describe why the client's paying for it. What are they getting out of it? How do they benefit from your doing it versus somebody else doing that same task? That whole exercise, it's amazing how the list of benefits can be drawn up, and then they can be better prepared to explain how their clients are truly benefiting from the fees that they're charging for the services that they offer. So that phrase is awesome. I like that one. That's good. Here's the last question. It's a fun question. I wanted to ask fly fishing. You've got an addiction for this. Tell us about fly fishing. What's it like there in New England? I know about it in Montana, here in the West with Colorado, Utah. I've been fly fishing. I've done the catch and release. How's it different up in New England?
Yeah, again, it's that like puzzle piece, right? I talked about small businesses. It's such a puzzle piece to be out there and like figure out fly fishing. And it's just so peaceful, being on the water and being there out with nature. But, there are some trout streams in New England, but there's also the saltwater fly fishing, which has been an entirely new challenge for me of like figuring out, tides and like different fly rods and different flies going after these huge striped bass that come up in the summer in New England. So that's been a ton of fun and very different.
So catch and release, or are you eating these things?
Yeah, catch and release. You can keep some, but I don't usually keep them.
Gotcha. Well, most fly fishermen that I know do catch and release. In fact, every one of them I know does catch and release, so that's perfectly fine. All right, so that being said, I'm going to wrap up this conversation. Patrick, come back to you for a closing thought, but this has been an amazing discussion. I knew it would be. Obviously, I'm very intrigued by Patrick's non-accounting experience coming into the accounting world. I always enjoy those conversations because they come at it from such a pragmatic, there's so much opportunity in the accounting space. It is, for so many reasons, the best of the best home-based businesses to operate. It's the growing industry in the sense that every business needs bookkeeping and accounting service. Every person, business, even dead and alive, pay taxes. I mean, there's just so much out there. And obviously, from an outside perspective looking in, he sees that opportunity potential. He sees that, came in, purchased the business, and then sharing with us his adoption, how he actually, in taking on the company, was able to clearly retain and manage the processes to work with the employees, help them still excel, grow the business. He's working with Steve, the owner. I think that dynamic was fascinating. The other thing is obviously the valuation of the business. What value did he give to various elements of the business? He obviously saw worth in the subscription model of the clientele, that there was that recurring revenue. He truly valued the standard operating procedures, that there were processes in place to do the work and key individuals in the business that could retain those relationships with clients, get the work done. That was all very intriguing to him, and so much so that he was willing to pay top dollar, get the business, close the deal, and go to work. I really love his vision for the next 5 years, to be with a business owner that sees that kind of potential, that's more interested in growth and developing something than just holding on to and being stagnant. I love that passion. But with that, his clarity as to how he was going to do it. He was very specific as to the amount he wanted, the clients that he was going to need, knowing the pricing, basically the average revenue per client, and then ultimately the clarity of what those services would look like that they would be benefiting from. Love that. And then this phrase that he just shared of how you actually bridge from all those features that we're so good at describing what we do to, more importantly, what is it that they get as a benefit of our doing the work for them? What are they really buying and how do they benefit from it? Phenomenal points there. I enjoyed the fact that as a family, he's got the support he has. He's got young children, hoping that they obviously glean from this whole experience in the coming years some excellent work ethic and skills so that they can also become contributing members to society. And then lastly, fly fishing. We all need that release, and we need that peaceful place that we can go and mentally think and rejuvenate ourselves. And obviously, Patrick has that in the fly fishing. So thank you very much, Patrick, for being on the show and sharing these amazing insights. Do you have a final thought for us today?
My final thought, serve your clients well, raise your prices, and go make that hire that you're unsure about. Just hire ahead, get the capacity.
Excellent. Couldn't agree more. That is excellent sound advice to end on. And so with that, what I'm going to do is encourage you as the listener to definitely go subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed, set your notifications, get word of the episodes that we release each and every week as we interview the experts and share with you tidbits of different things that you can be doing to implement in your business to, in fact, have the premier accounting firm. In addition to that, go back and listen to the past episodes. There's gems in there of individuals that we've spoken to, insights that they've given, ideas that they've shared to actually help you work on your business. In addition to that, if you would like to learn more about these principles and the many others that are appropriate and necessary to build your firm, feel free to reach out to us here at Universal Accounting Center. You can contact us at 801-265-3777. Or you can also visit us online going to universalaccountingschool.com. And always remember this, accounting success is universal. Take care, have a great day, and be safe out there.